Hey, what's up everybody? And I'm bringing you another news video. There's been a lot of gaming news in the last few days and I just wanted to go over some of that. I know that Nintendo Direct hasn't happened yet. I know a lot of us are anticipating it and waiting for it, just as I am. I'm excited to see what Nintendo has in store when they finally have the Nintendo Direct, and I'm excited to see what new games and everything that's coming out. But for now, I want to talk about the latest news stories in the last few days. So with retro consoles really making a run back with the NES Classic, the Super Nintendo Classic, all those countless retro gaming consoles that you can go out and buy, the Retron and all those things, there is a new retro handheld coming out by Hyperkin, and it is called the Ultra Game Boy. And basically what this is a very solid metal based Game Boy with a great LED backlit screen and a 6-hour battery life and great stereo speakers, apparently from what people saw at CES. And basically this Game Boy doesn't have games preloaded on it. However, you can play all of your old Game Boys on this Hyperkin Ultra Game Boy that will be coming out. And if you have a collection of Game Boy games and you find that it's hard to play them on that original Game Boy with that green screen and not having it being backlit and just being really bulky, this may be a great option, especially because of that battery life and that great screen. Personally, I don't have too many original Game Boy games. I have Game Boy Color games, so it would have been great if they make something like this for the Game Boy Color, but there is as well Game Boy Advance SP, which is a great Game Boy and plays all the Game Boy Color games and the Game Boy Advance games, so there is that. But this Hyperkin Game Boy coming out called the Ultra Game Boy will be coming out soon, and it looks like it'll be a great solution for all the people out there who have all these stacks of Game Boy games but don't really have a great solution to play them on. So Nintendo has filed a new patent for 1080 snowboarding, and if you remember, 1080 snowboarding came out on the N64 in 1998 originally, and it was a great arcade snowboarding game. I absolutely loved it, and then that original game came out 10 years later on the Wii Virtual Console, which was the same game. It was still a great, amazing game. Even then, it still held up. But in 2003, they released another 1080 game for the GameCube, which was 1080 Avalanche, which I also loved as well. I thought it was a great arcade snowboarding game. And it looks like that they filed a patent or a trademark. With this trademark, who knows what Nintendo is going to do? They could be making a new game for the Nintendo Switch, which I have my fingers crossed it is. Or they could be filing this patent if they were about to release a N64 Classic. But if I had my choice in the matter, I'd much rather have a brand new 1080 snowboarding game on the Nintendo Switch, because I think that would be such a big console seller. I think lots of people have so much nostalgia to that original N64 1080 game that they would go out and buy a Switch just for that. I definitely would be picking that up right away because I absolutely love these games. But let's keep our eyes open, because there will be a new 1080 game or an old 1080 game coming to a retro console on the horizon. So hardware sales for the PS4 has officially surpassed 73.6 million units. Now this is absolutely amazing. The PlayStation 4 was released in 2013 and it's had so many good games since it's been released. Honestly, I think the PlayStation 4 is probably the best PlayStation to ever be released. I mean, the PS2 is there. The PS2 is a great console. It has so many good games, and that was probably one of my favorite consoles of all time. But I mean, the quality of games that you get on PS4 today, and with the things like VR and with the online gameplay and just everything that's involved in the PS4, I think that is probably the best console released to date. It has been absolutely amazing how many units they've sold and the amount of games and the amount of the great games that you get with a PS4 today. You can pick up a PS4 for so cheap too, and it's something that if you don't have one, now is the best time to get it, because you can pick it up for about $300 and you can get a boatload of games that have come out in the last 4 years that are amazing to play. Battlefront 2 has sold about 2 million less copies in its first week compared to Battlefront 1. Here's how the numbers break down. In total, in its first week of sales on the market, Battlefront 2 sold about 1.3 million copies, and this breaks down to about 869,000 on the PS4, 438,000 on the Xbox One, and about 18,000 on PC. When looking at how it's sold in different regions, about 558,000 units were sold in the US, 503 copies were sold in Europe, and only about 36,000 were sold in Japan. Now this, like I said, is about 2 million less copies than Battlefront 1's first week sales, which is where they sold about 3.1 million copies. And this is crazy to think about, because Battlefront 2, even with the microtransactions, overall as a game, if you take away that, is a much better game. Battlefront 1, like I said in other videos, in my opinion, was not a good game. It was just a multiplayer game that was pretty redundant, got old pretty fast, whereas Battlefront 2 has a lot more to build off of, and they have a single player campaign, but those microtransactions and those loot crates completely killed it. So in an older video, I talked about how Nintendo was reaching out to make a Super Mario movie. This movie was going to be an animated movie, and it looks like, according to the president of Nintendo, Kimishima, that they are now in talks and very close to finding a partner to create the movie. The president of Nintendo also went over a few things. He went over why they're making the movie, and basically what he said was that he finds that the younger generation are not finding Super Mario through video games like my generation did when Super Mario was all the rage with all of their amazing games that came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System, for the Super Nintendo, for the N64, and all those great retro consoles. Talked about how many people are finding Nintendo through different licensing agreements, saying, for example, that they find Super Mario through a toothbrush, or they find Super Mario through other types of things like toys or anything else other than video games. So that's one of the reasons why they're venturing out and thinking about making a movie for Super Mario. If you remember Nintendo, if you think about Nintendo, they're very stingy with their licenses, and they don't usually go out and get licensing deals with other companies. But this movie, it looks like it's going to be made, and they're looking for it to come out before the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. I'm really excited about it, especially if it's a really cool animated movie, because as we know, that live action Super Mario movie that came out in 1993 didn't do very well, was not a commercial success at all. And I mean, it has a cult following to it, but it was overall a failure of a movie. So a new HTC Vive has been announced, and it's the HTC Vive Pro, and this is an upgrade to the current HTC Vive VR headset. The HTC Vive Pro comes with a bunch of upgrades. Mainly, it's now a wireless headset device. If you've used VR, any of the headsets currently out on the market right now, there's all these wires that really restrict your movement and really restrict some of the immersion. The resolution of the screens in the HTC Vive will be 70% better with a 2880 by 1600 resolution. The Vive Pro will also include dual microphones with active noise cancellation. The headset itself will be a lot more ergonomically fitting, and it will keep more light out, so you'll be more immersed in the game. Overall, this looks like a much better headset than the previous HTC Vive. This always happens, obviously, with new technology, with VR being coming out on the market last year, really coming more to the mainstream where more people can have access to it. There's always those hiccups and those kinks that need to be worked out after the first models. This model looks absolutely amazing. I hope they have demo sets up in Best Buys or in different stores so that you can try it out, because I would love to see how cool and how much more immersive this HTC Vive Pro is with the higher resolution screen. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there will be a Nintendo Direct coming sometime soon. When, we don't exactly know, but we are all waiting in great anticipation. Nintendo of Russia kind of hinted at the Nintendo Direct coming, kind of leaked it, and recently GameStop tweeted that they're looking forward to what Nintendo is going to show off at Nintendo Direct, but then quickly deleted that tweet. So Nintendo just needs to finally tell us when it'll be, so we can see all of the new great games coming to the Switch and to the 3DS in 2018. So as we all know, Microsoft is starving for exclusives, and it looks like they're pulling out their checkbooks, which rightfully so, because they need exclusives to try to get timed exclusives and console exclusives. Now, this information comes from Reset Era forums, where a developer from Flashbulb Games posted on this topic, and this is what they had to say. Without going into too much detail, I know for sure that Microsoft have got their checkbook out and are actively seeking out both smaller and larger titles they can get as an Xbox exclusive, both timed and full on. So if you got the Xbox One X, or if you just have your Xbox One right now, the regular one, this is just good news, because Microsoft really needs to hit the road hard with their exclusives this year in 2018, especially for the Xbox One X with that enhanced 4K gaming and with HDR, because it is a great console, and it would be just a shame, in all honesty, if there wasn't some more exclusives for it and more killer titles to take advantage of the Xbox One X. So those are some of the news stories from the last few days. Let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think about any of these things that I talked about. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.